Hi, I'm Robert, and welcome to the High Desert Ranch and Homestead channel. Tonight is another edition of Food for Thought, Food for Thought. And bear with me, this might be a few more minutes than I normally like to be, but there's some important stuff that I just need to get out there and let you decide. There's a lot of stuff happening right now. And I put out quite a few videos. They'll slow down a little bit because come next week, things are changing. It's autumn. Life's going to get real busy heading into winter as I prepare to take on a few new things and resume some other areas of study and whatnot. So that it will slow down. I will try and put out as many videos as I can where it comes to projects, things of that nature. So please like, subscribe, share. I really do appreciate it, and know this, that I do it for you guys. I don't do it for me. I love to study and analyze and break down things. Anyone who knows me, that's just what I love to do. And so I'm making this information available to you so that you can make an informed decision, study it out on your own. Well, study it out on your own and then make yourself an informed decision. So I'm going to try something new. I'm going to put stuff in the links in the description below, but also I'm going to put some graphics up here. I'm getting a little bit better, more knowledgeable with my editing equipment, and I've got some fun new toys coming. So hopefully that will be helpful to all you guys. So something that's a little bit interesting, and for any of you who haven't taken an economics class, you're not alone. There's plenty who haven't. If you're like me, tuning into this channel, you probably either have your working man's PhD or you're working on your working man's PhD. So I am definitely working on mine. But I have taken an economics class. It's a macroeconomics class, and I learned a lot of things. And so I don't pretend to be an economic expert, but what does trouble me is I'm able to pick out things that I would have to believe I'm not the smartest guy in the room. And so when I hear these reports from high up officials, especially what are called economists, it raises an eyebrow for me. And so very quickly, bear with me, you're going to come back to economics class, and I'm going to go over a few terms only so you can understand the context. And if you need to, stop and Google some of those definitions or things like that, because I don't have time to break down everything. But I did see a graphic the other day, and I loved it. And it's a graphic of a beautiful cat. It reminds me of my cat, a great Mauser he is. And so as you can see, there's this beautiful orange tabby and then looming above a mouse. And I would like to think that that mouse has no idea what's coming, but he knows something's wrong. He can't quite see the danger yet, but that danger is there, lurking, ready to come down and pounce. And the outcome probably isn't going to be very good for the mouse. So I feel like if you're like me, I'm a cautious person. I like to study things out, and I'm not just the first one to jump, or using a ranch term, I'm not a sheep. I tend to buck the system a little bit, for good or for worse, I don't know. But I feel like I'm that mouse, and I'm sure a lot of you watching this video, or if you've watched any of the videos on the channel, you feel like that mouse. You know something's wrong. You can't quite see the danger, but it's there, and it's close, and it's ready. So with that being said, I just love that picture too. I love all animals, especially a cat, a good, beautiful cat. That's a great Mauser. Good old barn cats. But so here's some economic terms I'm going to go over really quick, and then we'll move right into what I really want to get across to you good folks. And it is the changes in the following shift demand. So I'm going to talk about supply and demand. So the changes shift demand: population, income, the price of substitute goods, price of complement goods. And if you don't know the difference between those, feel free to pause the video, do a little Google search so you get a better idea. And then consumer tastes and preferences. And then changes in the following will shift the supply. In the price of inputs, that's a big one, especially when it comes to ranching and farming. The technology, the number of producers, and the number and the price of other goods in the economy, in the market. And then another thing too is talking about commodity price, or the price, basically like a retail price. Commodity price moves up and down due to supply and demand changes. When the quantities supplied and demanded equal each other at a specific price, the market has reached a market clearing price, aka consumer price or retail price. So having that kind of context, I came across something interesting, and I'm not sure if you have seen this, and I'll post a link below so you can see for your own eyes. It was the Chief Economist for the USDA, the Office of Chief Economist, that's what it is. And they had some questions that dealt mainly with COVID, obviously. That seems to be on everybody's mind, as much as there seems to be so much fatigue as well. But it said, the question is will there be food shortages? And I'm going to read it right here so I don't... and the answer from this Chief Economist, what is his name? I'm trying to remember. Sheesh. I've got notes here because there's no way I could remember all this. Mr. Johansson. Mr. Johansson, yes. Mr. Johansson is his name. And his answer was, there are currently no nationwide shortages of food. Although in some cases, the inventory of certain foods at your grocery store might be temporarily low before stores can restock. Food production and manufacturing are widely dispersed throughout the U.S., and there are currently no widespread disruptions reported in the supply chain. So there are already a few, I think, question marks for me. And then it says the USDA and Food and Drug Administration are closely monitoring the food supply chain for any shortages in collaboration with industry and our federal and state partners. We're in regular contact with food manufacturers and grocery stores. So, does that answer even make sense? Does it apply to where you live? Because it certainly does not apply to where I live. And there's a lot of other questions that we're going to get into, and the answers, I'm going to go ahead and say it, is dishonest. But it also could be true. I think there's truth and not so much truth when it comes to this. And that would be... so let's talk about that. What is a food shortage versus supply chain? Food shortage versus a supply chain disruption. I think there is a difference, but at what point does constantly empty shelves at the Walmart or the grocery store, especially with certain items like I've talked about in previous videos, that have been out for several months, I've not seen them come. There's not even replacement, these weird off-brands like some people have been reporting. I haven't even seen off-brands. The shelves are just empty. And I've talked to our local grocery store manager. I live here in a very small town. That's a few thousand people. But he's still not getting 100% of what he is ordering from the central warehouse. He's part of a group or an associated group of grocery stores. So they have some buying power. And he's still not getting everything that he is ordering in. So yes, that could be a supply chain interruption, but you heard that there is no widespread disruptions. But like I've also talked about, if you've walked into any sort of fast food restaurant, even sit-down restaurants, there's signs all over the place and notices talking about the lack of supply. And even what's interesting too is they talk about the rising costs of food and ingredients will require constant changes possibly in the price of the menu, which also in this statement by the USDA's chief economist, he says the complete opposite. So what is it? I think it's safe to say that it's nicer to say disruption in the supply chain rather than food shortages. The disruption in supply sounds a lot better than food shortages, and I believe there's both. And if they're it's small, it's trying to be masked right now, but they're coming. There's already disruption in the supply chain, which according to USDA there isn't, but I would beg to differ. It might be localized, but it's becoming a lot more. But to flat out say it there isn't is false and dishonest, in my opinion, and that's just not right. And so that's the question we have to ask ourselves: what is really happening? And I'm going to post this graphic. It's the food price index, and basically what the food price index is it takes not only here in the United States but also around the entire world 5 major groups. One is meat, dairy, cereal, oils, and sugars, and they've been doing this for decades now. And so what's interesting is they just released another report for the end of quarter 3 or quarter 3. And what's something that's very interesting is if you've not been following these, but I'll definitely, as you can see in these graphics, the situation isn't looking very good. And so the highest point overall in the food price index was in 2011. If any of you remember, there were some big shortages. Wheat was a problem, along with some other things. Just a big disruption in the supply, and I won't get into all that, but it was at 132 points. And so for these last few years, they've taken 2014 through 2016 as kind of the barometer. They have it at 100. So 100 is the baseline as far as the averages in 2014, 15, and 16. And also something that's interesting to note is 2016 is some of the highest not only production yields, but also overall supply and all these major groups of meat, dairy, cereal, oil, and sugar. And so with that in mind, that the supply was high, but the prices were low. So in 2016, it was at 92 points. 2011 was 132 points. And as you can see by these graphics, feel free to pause those and take a little bit closer look. So in 2021, and ever since 2016, that index has been on the rise, which means prices are on the rise. This year, in 2021, we're at 127 points and rising. And what's interesting too is that we're up 3% already from July, and then we're up 32% from last year this time in 2020. So for all the supply crunches and things like that in 2020, everyone was using COVID as their cover. Things aren't improving. But if you're to read this Chief Economist from the USDA, things are looking great. This is the food shortages that you're not seeing, or this is not whatever, the Jedi Rancher mind trick. And so here's another direct quote from the website. It says, "What is the USDA doing to ensure access to food? The USDA is monitoring the situation closely in collaboration with our federal and state partners, and they're ready to assist, and they've got basically on the ground agencies that are helping keep everything up to date." So let's look at some of these corn prices, and bear with me. I apologize if I'm trying to be as fun as possible as I can with some of these numbers, but I think they're really important for you to understand, because what we're being told is not what is actually happening. And when I'm looking at numbers that he has access to, if I have access to, but yet he's painting a completely different picture. So if you look at the U.S. average corn price, you'll see that in 2011 it peaked. It spiked to basically $7 a bushel, and that was because production was low, as you can see as well. The U.S. corn yield was down, overall supply was down, and so what's interesting is that in 2016 it peaked, and in this year, the corn is lower than it's been in the last few years. So the total supply is down. But what I also find interesting is that this year, 28% of our corn being grown is used for ethanol food production. And that is expected to increase up to 35%. And that's only because there's been a limit placed upon the total amount of corn that can be used for the production of ethanol. We'll see if that changes. But as of right now, 28% of the corn grow is not for edible or human consumption, which I want to be on the record to say we will go down as one of the dumbest civilizations in history for making corn and growing corn that wasn't being used for food production. And it's being funded to the tune of $44 billion by us, the taxpayers, via the federal government. So if that makes any sense to you, I'd like to know. Please tell me in the comments below. That's something that needs to end as well, for a whole lot of reasons that I won't get into. But like I say, so going back to that supply and demand, it bottomed out in 2011, peaked in 2016. A lot of things you'll notice have peaked in 2016, and it's been on the trend line has been downward ever since 2016. Yet you'll notice that the population has not been trending downward. In fact, it's been going up. So very interesting that that you see that across the board in these major commodity and supply groups. And so That's something to look at as well. Wheat is one of those things of which going back to that USDA report. Oh yeah, we're fine. Wheat's doing great. Well, as you can see in these graphs right here, again, 2011, things weren't super great, just like everything else. Peaked in 2016, and we're now trending back downward again. But as you'll notice too, it correlates in 2011, the price per bushel for wheat peaked, and then it dropped incredibly, almost in half in 2016, and now we're inching back up again. And so I just saw a report today that said the price of wheat is going up because, surprise, surprise, we had that huge Arctic blast in March, and the winter wheat could normally take the cold, but once it gets to a certain point in its growth stage, it can't handle that bitter cold. And so when we had that bitter cold in March, it came all the way down as far as Texas and Louisiana, and there's snow on the ground for several days in some spots. That really destroyed a lot of the winter wheat crop. And so, and then because of the droughts here in the summertime, in Montana, the Dakotas, Canada, but specifically talking about the US, is those reports. So there's projections for this year, which were already lower than what we've had in the past few years. It's now, they're saying, is the farmers are starting to harvest like they are in places, Montana, Idaho, Washington. They're seeing that the yield isn't as good as they thought it was. So what's interesting is I'll be curious to see once the numbers start coming in to see where we're truly at. So what's interesting is, here's also another direct quote from this USDA chief economist. He says, the most recent wide weekly reports by the USDA marketing service show that the wholesale price of many cuts of beef and pork as well as eggs have stabilized or are beginning to decline. You know, it's reminds me of a situation that starts with an A and then ends with an N. We were told just weeks before the complete debacle and unraveling of this situation that everything was fine, which, you know, I've reviewed some of those question and answer sessions, and yeah, maybe at that exact moment things were okay, but I find it hard to believe that they didn't foresee that what happened. And so when I hear this, that, oh, everything's fine, things are beginning, the prices are beginning to decline. Anyone who's gone to the market, especially recently, and just the eggs, I just told you in the last video, go check it out, the Food for Thought video that where lumber prices are low and food prices are high. Check that out, where the egg prices are not going down. But I believe too is people are looking for alternative sources of protein because they can't afford the meat or the chicken or the pork. They're trying to turn to eggs, and so that's driving the prices up. I don't know. I'll be curious to dive into that, but I'm sorry, that to me is completely dishonest. And for a chief economist to say that, and me, Robert, here, and good old high deserts of the Intermountain West, to be able to see that, you know, look at the trends, and even the trends from last year. Meat has gone up overall 25%, and the prices dipped barely this summer in June and July, but now they're right back up, just going way out of the price anyone can afford. When you're talking about a 25% increase on a product that's already somewhat expensive, especially for the common man, the working man, that's a lot of money. That 25% increase translates to a lot of dollars and cents, versus a 25% increase on a can of green beans. It's an increase, but it's not like that translated over to a cut of meat, whether it's hamburger, steak, some chicken, you know, poultry products, pork, whatnot, what have you. So something that I wanted to hit on that really rubbed me the wrong way, and sorry if I get a little worked up about this, is there's 4 meat processors in the United States. They don't grow it, they process all the meat. So that means they buy the poultry, the pigs, the hogs, and the cattle, and they produce, I've heard different reports, I'm going to be conservative, 80% of all of our meat comes from 4. and 2 of them are foreign owned. One by Brazilian brothers, and the other one's by the Chicoms, Smithfield Foods. They were bought out a few years ago. I will never buy a Smithfield product again. Sorry, Chinese Communists, Chicoms for short. So I leave that up to you, what you want to do with that information. The other is JBS, brothers out of Brazil, and then the other is Cargill and Tyson. So, and Tyson is the one I'm going to talk about. The Tyson, because people have talked about price setting and things like that, which is definitely not the way to go. I won't get into that here, but that has not worked out anywhere. And there's been countries that have done it recently. Go Google search that, and you'll see what happened to their economy. Completely destroyed it because economically it doesn't make any sense. And if you do, you have to be really, really, really careful, and it has to be very short term. But to do that right now with our economy the way it is, it would be absolutely disastrous. So who knows? It could be a Biden hold my beer kind of a situation. Anyways, the CEO of Tyson Foods said they were complaining about not being able to keep up with the inflation. But I thought we didn't have inflation according to the government. Anyways, I digress. And that their prices can't keep up with costs. So I want to do something. Now I'm going to put a little graphic up on the screen for you that I created so you can pause it and then go back and look at it or save it. Anyways, there's the Tyson Foods. Their third quarter profit was, so for third quarter, they're 42%, their profit is 42% more year over year from last year. And the revenue is up 25%, which translates to just over, excuse me, man, got flies and mosquitoes. The revenue is up 25%, just over $12 billion. Yes, billion with a B. And the volume of sales rose 10%. And they're already $1 billion above their 2021 projections for total revenue. And so just in the third quarter alone, and mind you, the CEO and then actual realistic economic reports say that inflation is up over, I believe, I want to say it's 9% in the third quarter and 14% overall this year. So 9% alone in the third quarter. And Tyson's food meats had $300 million worth of revenue for all this inflation. And so their total sales thus far in 2021 are up $2 billion to $46 billion. So again, think about that quote. The CEO said, we're having trouble, and yet the cold hard facts right here, the data, says completely opposite of that. So again, I don't know what to say. It's crazy. We live in a world that's upside down, topsy-turvy. And so basically looking at that, if inflation was up 14% overall this year, 9% alone in the third quarter. And also too, their sales they increased their sales price, Tyson did, on their pork products by 39%, beef by 12%, and poultry by 16% in the last year. And so basically Tyson Foods is in front of the inflation by about 95%. Again, they're not stupid. If I can figure this out, they've got people that are very well paid working for them, that they know exactly what they're doing. They know how to work the game and market and price things. And so something also too in this USDA report that I think is completely absurd, and again, they must be living in some alternate reality, not the reality I live in, is the consumer prices are up dramatically. Again, talking about that, it's up 25%, 30%, basically across the board, and you have that price index, which confirms that. And so if you're on a fixed income or you're working to make ends meet, an increase in your food budget by 25 or 30%, that's going to break the bank. That's what's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so that being said, there's just a couple other things I want to get into. So if you're still with me, God bless you. But there's something I want to talk about. It's flow commodities, and these flow commodities are products like the livestock, milk, meat, and eggs that are marketed every week of the year. It's not like cattle processing, where one time a year you take in your cattle to the auction and do all your transactions and your culling and your selling off, and then you collect your one paycheck a year. But so when it comes to these other commodities, to store anything would be extremely expensive. And whereas you have your other commodities like grain, rice, wheat, sugar, they can be held on to and stored much more long term. And so, so with this, when you have these kind of expectations, it's easy to determine, and it rarely affects the clearing prices, going back to that clearing price term. But however, for most farmers and ranchers, even if they can't either hold on to their inventory to try and get a better price, or in the case of these other non-perishable goods, the farmers can hold on to it to attempt to get better prices. So they're looking at it just like I'm looking at it, if they're smart about their business, which they are, otherwise they'd be out of business and they'd lose the ranch or the farm. But one thing that's interesting is like these short-term price movements can be puzzling at times, but the farmers will, take pigs for example. They'll try and hold on to the pigs for a few more weeks to get a better price, hoping, but they can't store the pigs for next year. So it's one of those things of the likelihood of receiving a higher price is not going to be so. And so something that I thought was very interesting is if you look again year over year, and especially from last year to this year, the cattle producers, the ranchers, they're only getting 6%. There's only a 6% increase in their sell price. So when they went to sell or auction off their herd, their steers, they're only fetching 6% higher. But I can tell you straight up, firsthand, that the input costs are much higher than 6%. And especially out here in the West, we have been hammered with drought conditions. I'm sure many of you are well aware now that the media has really caught onto that and run with it. It's COVID and this drought. But this drought is real, just like the COVID. But the drought, it is, I've seen firsthand a lot of farmers getting rid of their herds. And also, too, if they are holding on to their herds, they're taking out loans just to be able to feed their cattle through the winter by procuring hay in hopes that next year will be better. But if it isn't, they're going to be in some serious trouble when it comes time to pay that loan payment. And especially if they have to borrow more money for next year, they're then going to be forced with the situation of selling off. So between the small increase in the sell price and the input costs, and this drought, especially out here out west, a lot of ranchers have had to sell. So there's going to be a huge influx of beef. But this time next year, there's something called a biological lag. And that's something where, just like it says, you can't just decide, I'm going to do this, and then a week later you're rocking and rolling. When it comes to these animals, and even planting crops, you've got to plan a year in advance. And sometimes a biological lag, in this case, where a lot of people have been selling off first-year heifers, that's going to take just a few years to recover. And some people have downsized their herd by as much as 50%. And so that's going to be a huge long-term biological lag that is going to have rippling effects for many years to come. And it's going to continue to drive those beef prices and other meat prices up substantially. Especially, again, the reason for me showing you some of these input costs, these graphs, is that translates to input costs. Again, there was just a report out talking about baked goods increasing because the cost of wheat going up because the demand, no surprise here for anyone who's been actually paying attention, not listening to what the media reports, or even apparently the USDA, is there's not the wheat projections. So now farmers are, holding on to it, but not really holding on to it because they have a lower crop amount, so they've got to pay their bills and meet their costs. And so that's what's kind of crazy to me. And so between the drought and all these crazy weather conditions, however way they're caused, is really having a huge impact, not only with the growing, but also with the raising of livestock as well. And so, as always, I like to give you some solutions because I think that's going to be super important. You have to educate yourself on what's happening, which that's why you're here. So thank you for that. But also then taking that information and translating it into action. It's so important. And so start growing a garden. I don't care how big or how small it is, just start growing a garden. Start learning how to produce food for yourself. If you already have a garden, look at expanding your garden. If you have some livestock, if possible, get another beef cow. Add a few more chickens to produce a few more eggs, because as you see, egg prices have gone up about 25-30% a dozen. Milk, same thing, other dairy products. Even coordinate with other people. Maybe you don't want to do a dairy cow, but somebody else has that ability, they want to, and you can work out some sort of agreement that way. Definitely something, buy high protein and nutritious food stuff. I try and shy away from the expensive survival foods that you see really being marketed these days. That's great for a 72 hour kit, lightweight if you got to throw in a backpack, but realistically long term, that's going to have some problems. It's just not going to be sustainable. So I would recommend buying in bulk, rice, lentils, sugar, wheat, and even some flour and ham, but definitely have some whole wheat that you can then grind. And more importantly, make sure that you use the ingredients that you have on the shelf, because that to me is going to, I've experienced that firsthand. The last thing you want when you're trying to get by in any kind of survival situation, whether it's natural disaster, economic, political, loss of a job, is learning how to use your ingredients. And it gets your body used to it. Because if you haven't had whole wheat that's been ground up fresh, you're in for a surprise. So get your body used to that. And definitely learn how to bottle and preserve foods. It's super easy. I've done a lot of it myself. Some of it isn't economical, but it's great to know how to do it. But otherwise, I will go when there's big bulk sales, which where I live, there's bulk sales twice a year. And I bulk up and stock up on those things, because if I can buy at a lower price, that allows me to have more money to then turn around and buy even more food. And so you're never paying full price for anything. So it's not only economical, but it's just smart. And then even root cellaring. You might not have the space to do a root cellar, but if I can recommend a book, it's called Root Cellaring by Mike and Nancy Bubel. A great resource. You'll be amazed at what you can do even in an urban setting as far as preserving not only the foods that you buy, but your harvest as well, no matter the size of your harvest. So I don't know. And for me, as far as wrapping up this video, again, I apologize for the length, but I just needed to get all this off my chest so you could see what's just happening. Some might call me a simpleton, but if I can look at this data and the trends over the last several years, and maybe it's because I'm operating here in reality, working on that working man's PhD, I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room. But I know no one likes to cause a panic. But when I hear these statements, and it's been put there on record for everyone to see, and yet the reality of it is completely opposite of what they're saying, that to me does not curry favor or trust in these people that are so-called leaders. And so all I've got to say, in my humble opinion, is Chief Economist Mr. Johansson, you have been weighed in the balances and you've been found wanting. That's just me. Deal with it with you will, but remember, to end on a positive note, I love, remember you only get so many trips around the sun, and each day seems to be a little bit more uncertain than the previous. So don't forget to, as I like to say, sit tall in the saddle and hold your head up high, and don't forget to enjoy your ride. So please share with others, and this video help them understand what's actually going on. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. I would love to be wrong. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Please leave comments in the comment section below about what you're seeing in your neck of the woods. And I hope that I was your ticket to help us escape the ordinary, even if it was talking about things that aren't necessarily the best to talk about. But I appreciate you coming along with me on this very cool, the chill of an early fall, as George Strait would say, and being with me here in the high desert of the Intermountain West.